Hey everybody, how's it going today? It's your boy Edwin back with Strictly Comics. And what we have here is we have our first Image comic review of the week. Now, didn't really know what to expect from this book. Didn't even really know that this book was coming out until like the day of. And like I said, you guys, anytime you get a chance to pick up a Image #1, I say pick it up. And this one, I will say, did not disappoint. In a nutshell, what this book is basically about is, and I'm going to basically just paraphrase what was on the inner cover of this comic. And what happens is that there's division in the world within the pages of this book. The division isn't political and it's not geographical. The division is more or less among the rich and the poor. And it's kind of funny because we see, first I will say that Greg Rucka is doing a really good job writing this book. I love these type of stories because I've always wanted to see this type of story in the pages of a comic. I actually had this idea earlier this year, but I'm not a comic book writer, nor am I a drawer. So I was just wondering why somebody hasn't really done this. And Greg Rucka is actually doing it. Now, what he's talking about is, I think that he's talking about the reality of what's going on in today's world, but putting it in the pages of comics. He obviously is aware of what's going on in our reality today as far as the entities, the globalists, the bankers, the Freemasons, the Illuminati that's behind the scenes of what we're fed by mainstream media. He sees that we can't just believe what we're fed through mainstream media, and he knows that there's something else behind it. It's a control thing that's going on. And he kind of puts that a little bit in the page of this comic book, because what happens in this book is that the rich have taken over. And if you're not rich, if you're not among the few families that are wealthy, you're basically called waste. You're called nothing. And Greg Rucka sees that, and we can kind of see that when we saw with the housing market back in 2008. There was actually, a lot of people don't realize this, but there was actually an attempt to eliminate the middle class, because the middle class right now is the only thing that stands between the rich and the poor. When you eliminate the middle class, all you have is rich and poor, and rich obviously are able to take control, full control over the poor, but the middle class is really keeping the rich, in a sense, from that happening. So, not to give you guys a history on current events or anything like that, but I see where Greg Rucka is going. I see what he is attempting to do within the pages of this book. And in this comic, that's exactly what happens. There's this division between rich and poor. Basically, if you're not wealthy, you're nothing. You're going to die or starve or just live an absolutely miserable life, more so than what people are living today. And within the pages of this book, these families, there's a few who are accepted by these families who provide services for the families. And as you can see, one of the few is this lady right here, Miss Carlisle. She is a Lazarus one, and the word Lazarus, as you can remember, comes from the Bible, where Lazarus had died. He was dead for like 4 days, and Jesus raised him from the dead. Well, that's exactly what happens here, because, well, not exactly, like Jesus doesn't come in the comic and raise him from the dead. Excuse me, but in the pages of this book, the very first 2 or 3 pages, you see all of a sudden just these thugs breaking into a food storage pantry type of room within the compound of one of these families, and Lazarus just gets blasted by these guys. She gets shot like 4 or 5 times in the chest, and she's pretty much dead. But then all of a sudden she wakes up, and you're like, what the heck is going on? And then she wakes up and she kills the guys who tried to kill her. Well, lo and behold, they were trying to rob this family's home because they were starving. They were just looking for food. They were just robbing them for food. She kills them after she wakes up from being dead, and she has to basically kind of make a report to the scientist that is a scientist that that is overseeing her with this entire transformation, this process of her. There's a lot of like cell manipulation, cell structures, structure like that, regeneration of cells, stuff like that, which gives her the ability to not die. And through her report, she kind of has a conscience. She feels bad about it. She makes it known unto her scientist guy, and he tries to continue to inject her with this drug to basically sear her conscience. More or less, they just want her to be like a machine. They just want her to kill, do what they say with no questions asked. And that is kind of what their goal is with her, because their intentions are far different than what her intentions may end up being. I don't know. But she's actually called a forever, and a forever is, you know, the one, like I just said, provides the services for these families, and forever obviously means it correlates with her inability to die. This is a very good issue. Normally I would give this title like a 3.5 out of 5, but because I read the back of the comic, it's about 4 or 5 pages. It's kind of lengthy reading as far as the comic book is concerned, but it gives you inside, behind the scenes type of story of how this comic book came about. You get inside information from Greg Rucka and the artist that he collaborated on the title, Michael Lark. And this comic is actually about like 10 years in the making. And he finds out very valuable information, Greg Rucka does, that contributes to the content within this comic. And it's very interesting. I encourage you guys to read it, but not just the comic itself, but get some valuable info from the back of the book so that you can kind of see how this comic came about. And like I said, normally it would be 3 out of 5, but I have to give this comic a 5 out of 5 because I strongly relate. I've done a lot of extensive research on what Greg Rucka believes and what he, the info that he came about to add or to contribute to this book. So I believe in what he's doing. So far, this book has me so far. I'm going to continue to pick it up. I'm going to continue to read it. I encourage you guys to do the same thing. This chick right here, this chick is straight up gangsta. Like, she ain't to be messed with, man. And you're gonna see I think a very good development, and I hope a positive development of this character as we continue through the pages of this book. I'm going to continue to pick it up. I can encourage you guys to continue to pick it up. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I do appreciate it, you guys, the feedback, the likes, the subscriptions. Keep God first in your life. Enjoy your comics, though, and God bless you guys. I'm out of here.